It's just 4 days to Christmas, and last night I was able to go watch The Rise of Skywalker with my daughter, and we enjoyed the movie a great deal. Just as a summary right off the front, let you know I love the movie. Uh, as far as my placement of where it belongs in the order, I still place the sequel trilogy as a whole above the prequel trilogy in my own personal enjoyment. But the original trilogy in its original release is still my favorite, just because that's what I knew growing up. That was my first introduction to Star Wars, and it holds a nostalgic point for me. And I don't think I could fairly put those anywhere but the very top for me. So this movie, The Rise of Skywalker, didn't change where those fall. Having now the sequel trilogy as a whole completed, I feel that I can safely say that the trilogy as a whole fits right in the middle there. The uh, the overall impression of it was very good. We enjoyed it a lot, and I look forward to going to see it in the theater again soon. I hope to go today, but work got in the way, so we didn't do that. The elves are busy. We're making toys. So Christmas is coming right up, and we're excited about that. So the way I thought I would go through this, we're going to review the movie. We're going to talk about a lot of the major plot points, things that I liked, things that I didn't connect as well with me. And I thought I would do that in the form of the bingo card that I presented some time back. So as we go through this, I just like to lay out that bingo card again, and we'll discuss each one of them as we go through. And warning: this will contain spoilers, lots of spoilers. So talk about major plot points, specific scenes, and interactions, dialogues. This will cover the bulk of the movie. So if you haven't seen it, you don't want that, please come back at a different time when you can engage with the content. All that being said, we'll get started here. The very first square with bingo comes your free space in the middle. The free space for me that I felt like was a gimme, easy to go, was Luke being a cosmic force being. As a force ghost, he would not come back to life. That is indeed the case. I gave myself credit for that space. It was a free space anyway, and I honestly didn't expect him to come back. The first bingo card space, B1, Force Ghost Anakin will appear. This was disappointing to me. It did not happen, so I missed it, and I truly thought that it was going to happen in the movie. It's very disappointing that we weren't able to see that. So it's a miss. Anakin, you heard his voice, but I wanted, when she connected with the other cosmic force beings, the Jedi that had gone before, I wanted them to appear around her in ghost form, similar to what we saw in Lord of the Rings, with the ghosts standing around. I wanted them to be standing around her, encouraging her. I wanted to see them. Force Ghost Anakin, unfortunately, we didn't get him at all. We didn't get Hayden in his Force Ghost presence anywhere. So that's a miss. And it's honestly something that I really wanted. The second, Palpatine will appear in some living form, not just a recording or a ghost. This was pretty much a given. We knew Palpatine was going to be in it, but there were lots of people kind of saying that he's just going to be a holocron projection, and that he would not appear in bodily form, and it was a recording of sorts. I never thought that that was the case. I thought that Palpatine would be our main villain through the entire saga, and that's the way it turned out. So Palpatine did appear in some living form. The next was N1, Thrawn will appear. This was me just getting caught up in the Thrawn books, the novels, and thinking that when they discussed the Chiss, children had force sensitivity and their ability to navigate through hyperspace without computer navigation, that they called those children Skywalkers. And with the rise of Skywalker, with Rey and new Force skills coming in, I totally thought that we were going to get her doing these space hops, the skipping through space, using her Force skill of skywalking, and that was going to be the Rise of Skywalker. Didn't happen. So I thought it was a bit of a stretch that Thrawn would appear, but that was my connection. The next, G1, Luke will save Rey by using some Force ability. Again, didn't happen. I really thought that they were going to step him up to have more of a physical presence in the movie. He did have a physical presence, but in that he caught that lightsaber and he talked with Rey. He lifted the X-Wing out of the water. So he did have some physical presence, but I thought it would be much more akin to what we saw with his Force projection, and it didn't happen. So Luke did not save Rey by using some Force ability, unless you were to really stretch it and say that pulling the X-Wing out of the water was that. I don't think that's fair, so I take it as a miss. The next, Rey will visit the world between worlds. This was a huge leap. This was something I really thought was out there, and I honestly didn't expect it. But when I heard a little bit about these micro fights that were going to happen, and perhaps hearing voices of other Jedi that had gone before, and lots of different scenes, I thought they may be kind of skipping through the world between worlds to different time through the saga, and we might actually see Rey and Ben kind of dueling through history all the way through the 9 movies, and that's not the way it played out. Oh, excuse me. The next one, B2, no Reylo romance. I did not think that was going to happen. I thought at the end of The Last Jedi, when she shut the door to the Falcon, I thought literally and figuratively that was done. In the novels, it seems to connect a lot more with Finn, romantically, if you will, and I just did not see it there with Kylo. Huge fan of Girls with Sabers. Followed them all the way through, and they had very strong reasoning why that was going to happen, and it did play out very similar. It didn't give them everything they wanted from a Reylo community standpoint, but it did kind of happen, and it happened quite strongly there when Kylo brought Rey back to life. So Reylo happened, so I missed. I too, Finn will not have a romance with Rose. Got this one right. I saw the whole thing happening with Finn and Rey, and I did not see him having a relationship with Rose, even though Rose was kind of had a crush on him. I didn't think it would play out as a romance. And it didn't. So take credit there. The next, in 2, Snoke will not be revealed as being Plagueis. That's the case. I gave myself credit. I got this one right as well. And this was me more or less trolling on the people who were keep bringing Plagueis up as a character, as a major character for this movie, as being the big bad guy behind the whole thing. I just never bought it. It would be really tough to go back and through the original trilogy and say that was Plagueis all along running it. Just didn't have it. And even the prequels where Plagueis is mentioned, it would be a huge stretch to say that he was kind of the overarching bad guy in the prequels. And the sequels, I'll give you that Palpatine never seemed to really be that guy either, but until this movie. But if you were to pick a character to kind of go all the way through, I never saw that as being Plagueis. I didn't think Snoke was going to turn out to be the big bad guy. I always thought it was going to be Palpatine, and I thought the Aftermath series kind of gave us some foreshadowing of that. So there's still a theory out there that says that Plagueis was actually embodying Palpatine and Snoke and all of these all the way through, and it's Plagueis is the overarching bad guy, but that's a stretch. I don't think that's the case. G2, Hux is a mole for the Resistance. That's true. It was an early rumor, but then it kind of faded away. I can see why it faded away. Hux is barely in the movie. His character was minimized a lot, and he looked defeated. He looked beat. Demoralized. Never really bought into him in this movie at all, and played out that way. He revealed himself as being the spy, the mole, and they killed him. So that's the end of Hux. O2. Kylo or Ben will sacrifice himself, and this I mentioned Ben Dimson in the initial that happened. We saw when Rey put the lightsaber through Kylo, and he was dying, and then she healed him. That was a bit of a figurative where Kylo died, and Ben resurrected out of that. We see it following that scene that Ben has this beautiful, heart-wrenching memory kind of discussion with his dad. You know, he's talking to his father. He's talking to Han Solo. It looks very, when we see it, it looks very physical. But Ben even mentions, "You're just a memory. You're my memory," and that's the case. But so Ben was redeemed, and he chucks his red lightsaber into the ocean, and that's the end of Kylo. From there, at the end of the movie, of course, he does sacrifice himself. Ben sacrifices himself for Rey to give her life, and that's where the Reylo was fulfilled. Moving on. B3, we'll see a scene with more than two Force Ghosts. Again, it didn't happen. There was a scene at the very, very end with Luke and Leia as Force Ghosts appearing before Rey. But even that isn't really what I was thinking. I was thinking that we were going to get Yoda. I was thinking we were going to get Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I thought that we were going to get Anakin and Luke. I was sure that we were going to get those four. And if they were going to bring Leia in, she could have been a fifth, but I knew we were going to get four. I just knew it. Like at the end of Return of the Jedi, when you have them lined up, I expected that with Rey and at the end of Rise of Skywalker, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So, missed. Next, Rey's parents will still be nobodies. I took a hit on this one. Technically, we still don't know who they are. We don't have names for them. We don't know her dad's name. We do know that her father, Rey's father, was a Palpatine. He was Sheev's son. So I guess they are somebodies, even though we don't know who they are. So I can't give myself credit for this. I put an X here. I missed it. Rey's parents are technically somebodies. So there you have it. The next, Luke, this is my free space. Luke's the cosmic force being. We'll skip over that. We already discussed it. G3, Poe will become the leader of the Resistance. That's the case. When Leia passed, she sent control or leadership of the Resistance to Poe, and he became the leader. So there you have it. The next, Leia will go to Naboo, maybe to be put to rest. Missed it again. I really thought that and wanted to see, as this being the overarching story to bring all of them together, we'd go back to the beginning, back to Naboo, where Leia's lineage comes from, through Padme Amidala. I thought for sure we'd revisit it, and unfortunately it didn't happen. So I missed that one as well. B4, Kylo will explore the unknown regions. That was checked off right at the very beginning of the movie. Kylo was getting the Wayfinder device, and he was traveling through the unknown regions looking for the route back to uh, Palpatine, and he found it. So I got that one. I4, Rose will become a leader of some sort in the Resistance, and I mentioned in the preview video, the one before we covered this card, that I thought she would be in logistical support of some sort. That it was the case. She was in logistical support. Her role was minimized greatly, but it also seemed obviously that she was part of the leadership. Her, along with Poe and Finn and Rey, were the leaders of the Resistance, and that's she was in a leader role, but as I predicted, so I take credit for that. The next, in 4, Lando will not die. That was never in question. It's the case. They treated his character well. He had a minor role, but it was enjoyable. G4, Chewie will not die. Some of the ridiculous rumors that came out early kind of talked about Chewie dying and being treated poorly, just like all the other legacy characters. People who really dislike The Last Jedi. I had heard all of those discussions and thought that they wouldn't cross that barrier. There was a point where we thought that maybe he did, but very shortly afterwards, we find out that he was still alive. So we didn't struggle with that very long at all. 04, Rey will not be training Force sensitives. She was still training herself. When the first time we see her, Leia is training her. Rey is struggling with some of the training. She's kind of getting hit with the little blaster thing. She's also the training remote. She's having trouble controlling her emotions. She doesn't complete the training course, and then she quits. So it's a not only is she not training Force sensitive, she's not fully trained herself. She's strong. She's very, very powerful, and she's very well trained. She's wearing white Jedi garb as a Jedi Master, but she calls Leia Master. She doesn't take that on herself. I think that at this point it's safe to say she is a Jedi, but not a Jedi Master by any means. The last row, B5. The Knights of Ren will reappear and be part of the story. That's true. They were part of the story. A lot of people are kind of putting it down and saying that they were chumps or whatever. I don't think so. It was very clear that the Knights of Ren were kind of the strong arm of Kylo, if you will. He sent them to take care of business, and they did. They instilled fear, and they kind of were with him in many of the scenes. They had active roles. They were involved directly in capturing Chewie. They were active throughout the movie, and right up to the very end sequence. So I take that as a check mark. I5, Maz will be working with Lando and or Chewie. Nope, that's not the case. Maz was working more closely with Leia, and even to some degree Rose. So I completely missed that as well. I really thought the Maz and Lando would be involved, when we might see Maz on her own ship with her kind of folks, and Lando and Chewie on the Falcon, and that would be part of that chemistry makeup, but that's not how it worked out. In 5, Rey will find out that she's a clone. Missed. Boy, I really wanted this to happen. To me, the mirror scene in The Last Jedi set that up perfectly. And for me, it feels like the Rise of Skywalker kind of missed. They do have a cloning element, but it's Snoke. I would have much preferred to see Snoke as just being a puppet that Palpatine kind of took over, and that the clones were Rey's, and that she was an embodiment of a makeup that he some experiment or lab study that he had created. I that would have been far more preferable for me. I see how it worked out. That's fine, but definitely missed on her being a clone. That's not the case. And we were kind of right on the dark ray that she was either going to be a vision or a clone. Turns out she was a vision. That's what we mostly thought that she was going to be. And her scene was very short. Again, I really would have loved it to have been a clone, and when they were coming into Palpatine's lair, so to speak, that they might have been a bunch of them to fight, but it's not how it worked out. G5, Luke will directly talk with Ben or Kylo. No and no. He didn't talk directly with either. The surprise was that Han did. But it was, again, it was Kylo's memory, not truly like a Force ghost or cosmic being, anything like that. It wasn't in that at all. It was completely Ben's memory and him kind of reliving that scene that he had with his dad in The Force Awakens, but playing out differently and with his redemption. It was a beautiful scene. One that I'll enjoy watching over and over. But Luke did not talk directly with Ben or Kylo. The last square, O5, R2-D2 and C-3PO will have significant dialogue and roles in the story. C-3PO for sure, right? He was central to the story. He was involved throughout. R2-D2 was involved quite a bit as well. He not only restored C-3PO's memories mostly, but he also had other roles in downloading from the very beginning, downloading the information that Hux had sent. R2 was in the X-wing of Poe when they were in the big battle. So both of them did have significant roles, and so I take credit on that one. So that's the bingo card. If you played along, I'd love to see how yours came out. Again, there are things in Rise of Skywalker I wanted to see that didn't happen. There were things that I didn't think would happen that did. Overall, loved the movie. Really, really loved it. For me, the dialogue, the scenes, all of it well outpaces the prequels. I need to watch it a few more times before I truly know if I put it above Return of the Sith or not. But right now I say yes, I do, because Return of the Sith has some scenes in it that I struggle with personally. It has some great scenes. It's got great music. It's just a great from those standpoints. But some of the dialogue and some of the things that happened in there still don't resonate with me. And for the most part, Rise of Skywalker did resonate extremely well. So put this one up there. It's definitely, as I said, in the top part. I still go to the original trilogy. Original release is my go-to. That's what I grew up with. That's what I remember for the largest portion of my developmental years growing up, and even through joining the Army. And then later, when the prequels came along, there was some disappointment. So I've struggled with the prequels for a long time, trying to find ways to enjoy them more and more, trying to find ways to make them fit in better for my own personal enjoyment. But these sequel movies, they're visually stunning. The storyline is great. I connected really well with the characters, and I enjoyed it immensely. There's more to talk about, but I think I'll leave it here for tonight. Please, if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. If you played bingo, I'd love to see your card as well and see how it went for you. And I mention once again, we've got Santa's mailbox behind me here. If you have any topics that you'd like to discuss or questions you would like to discuss in a future video, please submit them. We'll pull them out of the mailbox and we'll take a look at them in a future video. Until then, may the force be with you, and Merry Christmas.